Like water literally is the lifeblood of our realm. So it's just even more important that we be conscious of it and take care of it as a resource that also takes care of us.
I need to have some water. Welcome to Food Slaying. My name is Michelle, and I am your host. And today we're talking about fluoride. I decided to come outside. It's snowing for the first time this season, and this is the season finale of season 4. So I figured I would just treat you guys. If you're watching this on Patreon because you're one of my Patreon supporters, then you're seeing the full long format version of the video. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. But if you're a foodie, or you're a food grower, you're a food maker, or a food truther, I encourage you to support this show on Patreon because you get exclusive access to content like long format video podcasts or my book that I'm coming out with, which is the Backyard Gardening Guide. And it's never too late to get started growing your own food and taking responsibility for your own food and what goes on your plate. So if you like this content and you get some value out of it, I encourage you to share it with people that you love. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of my patrons. Thank you, Bethany, a new patron. And let's get started. So we're talking about fluoride because most of us have heard at least once from a dentist that we need fluoride, right? There's fluoride in our toothpaste, and there's actually fluoride in most municipal sources of water across the United States. It's also, one of those things that a lot of people have questions about. There's some people on one side of the argument that say, oh, fluoride's just fine. We need it for tooth decay or to diminish tooth decay. We need it in our purification process of our water. And then there are people on the other side of the issue like me, and maybe if you're listening to this podcast too, you're on that side of the issue where you're like, why is it even in there? What do we need it for? And what are the implications? Like, what is it doing to us? So that's why we're talking about it, because according to several sources, fluoride is used in 75% of municipal utility sources of water across the United States, and the decision to use fluoride in our water was actually made in 1962 by the United States Public Health Service, largely to prevent tooth decay. Now, levels of fluoride that are permissible in water have been lowered by federal and local government agencies in recent years due to the fact that people are actually getting fluoride from other sources, namely fluoridated toothpaste. But we also have heard some things. You can hear the ducks back there. That's one of the things when you film outside. But one of the things that we hear, especially from health professionals, is we hear drink more water, and we have to drink water, otherwise we die, right? Plants need water, people need water, animals need water. But here's the thing. People like me, and of course, if you're listening, maybe you too, we have questions the impacts of fluoridated water on people, like pregnant women, like children, and us on our bones. We need to understand what fluoride is. We need to understand how it's affecting our health long term. And more importantly, what can we do about it if it's a problem? So that's why we're going to talk to someone that has already been on the show. He was on the show in season 2. He's a lot of fun to talk to. He's a PhD in biochemistry, and he's going to talk to us about fluoride because I caught him on Twitter talking about fluoride and why it's in our water. So I invited him back to the show. So please welcome Tanei Ricks. Cool. Well, I am really, really excited that you're joining me again. You were with me on season 2 talking about corn, GMOs, genetics, the digestive system, epicite corn, all of that. It really is one of my favorite episodes of all time. So I'm so glad that you made time to join me again. Welcome tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back. I had a lot of fun last time. Hoping that we do the same thing today.
I hope so too. And the reason you're here, I'm going to let you explain because I'm not on Twitter a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I do post on Twitter, but I'm busy. So, I need an assistant to post on Twitter for me. But Please, why don't you explain how this whole conversation came about? Because I think you'd be better at it just talking about that.
So we were talking about the last episode, and we were just saying, oh, it'd be great if you come back on. I was like, yeah, I'd be interested in doing it. And then we started talking about water and all of the different things about water that we may either take for granted or it just does for us on a daily basis that we don't realize. And so we started talking about issues with water quality, and then I was even wanting to take it a step further and talk about some of the hidden things about water, from an esoteric kind of metaphysical standpoint a lot of people don't talk about, and relate it to just water's role on our planet. Like water does so much that it's not supposed to be able to do. And it's a really interesting molecule that a lot of people don't really take the time to think about. And so this is going to be a homage to water, I guess. It's the best way
That's
to
awesome.
say
That's
it.
awesome. And from a health and wellness standpoint, which is where I spent a lot of my time and work, is talking to people about drinking water and why it's so important. And along the way, when you start researching, and I research, you research, and you find things out that you just don't expect. And I think one of the things specifically that you were talking about on Twitter was fluoride. And, I've researched a lot about fluoride in water, specifically at the municipality level and why it's used. And I've read some not so savory things about the effects of fluoride in the water. Although you talk to most people, most people don't even know that it's there, right? B, if they do know it's there, then it's like, oh, well, fluoride is supposed to be good for you, right? And so it's really one of those things that when you do open that can of worms, there's a lot of debate about it, because on one side of the fence, people are like, oh, it's fluoride. It's good for you. It's good for your teeth. They put it in there to do blah, 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 blah. And I really want you to talk about just, you know, what you know about fluoride. And I think we all make assumptions about what's in our water. Obviously, we all need water to survive, right? We
Right.
can't do without water. And it is such a critical resource that I know in my research doing this podcast that a lot of it is just contaminated.
Right.
And it's not only contaminated with things that they put in there on purpose, but it's contaminated with a lot of environmental effluent that just ends up in there as a result of companies just, contaminating waterways and water tables. So please, please, let's start out with talking about what is fluoride.
So fluoride is an atom. It's a halogen. Halogen, for I think in Greek, means salt bearer. So there's a period of elements on the periodic table that they generally, when they're combined with either alkaline or alkali earth metals, things like sodium, potassium, calcium, whenever they react with those things, they turn into salts. So sodium chloride is an example of a salt. So you got sodium and then chlorine. Chlorine is a halogen. So whenever it combines with sodium, it turns into sodium chloride, which is a salt. So fluorine tends to form salts as well because it's in the same period. And fluoride, like the fluoride that's used in most water treatment facilities, is either sodium fluoride, and there's also a different form of it that I think it's like fluorosilicic acid, which essentially is the same thing as sodium fluoride, and it's supposed to remineralize your bones. There's like a little bit of evidence a while ago that may have suggested that small amounts of fluoride was beneficial to tooth enamel. But
Because
since
that's commonly how we associate fluoride as being beneficial, that it's
right,
like it's good for your tooth enamel. That's why dentists use it, right?
right,
Okay.
but but The other side of that is that fluoride is actually a very, very potent toxin to the body. So one, it's a first thing is it's a nephrotoxin. So nephrotoxic deals with the kidneys. So even in small amounts, like part per billion amounts of repeated ingested fluoride, did show that people could have kidney damage from fluoride.